Hello and welcome. While you may have been expecting a typical State of the Nation programme tonight, we're bringing you something different. Politics has always been a rough and tumble game. Members of Parliament have to be resilient against attacks from our biggest critics. But few politicians ever have that resilience tested to the extent of one of my friends and fellow parliamentarians, the very subject of this programme. Some of you will be familiar with him, while others perhaps less so. But I, for one, can safely say he is one of the bravest men I know. Struck down by a sudden illness, his life has now been changed forever. But his determination not to let his circumstances hold him back from what he does best, serving his constituents, is truly inspiring. The interview you're about to see is at times difficult to watch, but ultimately a story of the utmost courage and indomitability. Up until now, his story has not been told.
Behind me is the Palace of Westminster, where every day MPs of all political stripes go to work on behalf of their constituents. But just recently, there's been an MP missing. A Tory MP has gone through a life-changing illness, but has an amazing story, an uplifting story to tell. I'm Christopher Hope, GB News' political editor. Let's go and meet him. I'm on my way to Lambeth Community Care Centre, just around the corner from the Palace of Westminster. Here, Craig Mackinlay, the Conservative MP for South Thanet, has been recovering for the past 7 months. Craig is 57 years old, married, and he has one daughter. He was first elected as a Tory MP in 2015, and you may remember him from being on your GB News TV screens. So Craig Mackinlay, thanks for talking to GB News today. Just tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, my politics go back a very long way, as I'm sure most people are aware. It goes back to the early 90s, 91, when dear old John Major was discussing the Maastricht Treaty. That was when my political antenna went up, and I thought, well, this is a step too far. It was then that I decided that Britain must leave the European Union. It wasn't the European Union then, it was sort of, that's what Maastricht created. And myself and others created UKIP.
Before Nigel Farage?
About 6 months before, and then Nigel came along, and we were great friends, and all of that. We had quite a history together, but the waves parted in the mid-2000s. I came back to the Conservative Party, got elected in the Midway Towns Unitary Authority as a councillor.
So you can have 3 ballot papers?
Got through the Conservative Party's PAB, I was on the candidates list, didn't get a seat for 2010, but got a Kent seat, an association that I knew very well in South Thanet in 2015.
Well, ladies and gentlemen,
I stood on that platform as avowedly anti-EU. Very pleased at the time that you could talk about those things. David Cameron had offered the referendum, and 16 was, a glory day in my political history, really. It was everything I'd ever wanted to achieve. Whether it's quite happened as much as I'd have liked, that's another issue, but we did get out, and that was very important.
The irony was, of course, you beat Nigel Farage in 2015.
Well, the mad thing was, I don't know why he ever stood against me, but I would have thought there were other seats out there he could have won, but that's a mystery that I haven't sat down with Nigel to discuss, but maybe we will one day.
And you've been a right-wing Tory, I can say, since 15. You were
sensible Tory,
sensible
I would say.
Tory, okay. And you're one of the Spartans, the 28 Spartan MPs who held out through all 3 votes of Theresa May's Brexit deal, which means you've got a bit of something in you. You're stubborn, aren't you, Craig Mackinlay?
Well, I suppose I'm not in this for personal aggrandisement. I'm here to do a job, and a job that I think Britain needs doing.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
There was nothing was ever going to move me from voting against Theresa May's deals, because they're all bad. Number one, the medieval vote won that she lost by the biggest margin in British political history.
The ayes to the right, 242. The noes to the left, 391. So the noes have it, the noes have it. Unlock!
I almost forget all those glory days that went on, those knife-edge votes. I mean, the maddest one was the multiple choice vote, if you remember that one, that still didn't come to a decision.
Clear the lobby!
Right, fine. Yeah, lovely.
So you're used to being an awkward bugger.
I suppose so. Yes, I suppose so. I've always been fiercely independent, always sort of worked for myself. I haven't always had to play by the rules. But being in politics isn't about having a career, in my view. This is about getting things done that you truly believe in.
But one day, his life changed suddenly. It was one of those days that will be etched on Craig's memory for life. It was the end of September 2023. He was getting ready to go on holiday with his family. He started to feel unwell, and unexpectedly, Craig had contracted sepsis. Now, sepsis is a life-threatening reaction to an infection. It happens when your immune system overreacts to an infection and starts to damage your body's own tissues and organs.
Starting to feel just a little bit unwell, but you thought, well, so maybe a little bit of a cold coming on.
What, a bit fluey, or how do you feel?
Yeah, just a bit achy, just a bit tired, just a bit off, just off norm, really, yeah. Just that precursor you often get before you get a cold. And did a COVID test when I got home, because you thought maybe a bit of COVID about again, back last year. Nothing there, completely clear. Early morning flight the next day, thought I'd take myself off to bed. Went to sleep for a few hours. Wife, who's a pharmacist, sort of did the usual checks, blood pressure and temperature, and that was all fine. And felt a bit unwell during the night, got up and was sick. And by the morning, wife said, no, I think we need to call the ambulance.
So what time was this?
I think it was about past 7 in the morning.
When I couldn't detect his pulse and couldn't check his blood pressure, the monitor wasn't registering, that's when I knew that it's time to phone the ambulance. The ambulance first didn't even want to take him to the hospital. So
They didn't want to take him in?
They didn't. The only outstanding or only bad marker he had was his sugar level, which was very, very low. But once he had a bit of breakfast, even that came back up. So they were thinking whether to just see the GP in the morning or rush him into hospital. Luckily, they decided the second one, and that's when things started to speed up.
Within about half an hour of being in hospital, I had this, what they call the DIC effect, which is like when sepsis gets completely out of control, turned literally a colour of blue from head to toe.
Your whole body was blue?
Whole body from head to toe was blue. Wife had already said my hands were extremely cold.
He had septic shock.
He was in blue?
DIC, yes, he went into his whole body, top to toe, literally was navy. And
navy blue?
Navy blue, yes, that's the nature of the DIC. And within days, probably 2-3 days, we saw that there was serious discoloration on his toes as well, and his fingers, particularly his thumbs.
I'm out of it and gone and put into a coma, and didn't come round for another 16 days.
To be able to get on with all the necessary procedures, they had to put him in an induced coma, and then within a few hours he had to be dialyzed. The dialysis started. His breathing got difficult, so the lungs were also suffering. So that's when they declared the multiple organ failure.
Everything was starting to shut down. It was quite serious, and wife was told that they'd very rarely see people of this amount of illness in the hospital, and perhaps prepare for the worst.
At this stage, we still didn't know what the cause was, because none of the tests were showing any bacterium or viral in present, and that after 6 days came to light that pneumococcus. That's when we were told that Craig would have 5% chance to survive. I must admit, I never said goodbye. I never thought that's it. For Craig, you've got the first 2 days, the difficulty to deal with the idea that is it really happening or is it a nightmare? But then the reality hits after about 48 hours that it's not something you can wake up from. But somewhere down deep, I always knew that Craig would pull through. and he did, it became clear that there would be some kind of limb loss or digit loss we were hoping for to begin with, for fingers and toes. That was clear after about 7 to 10 days.
Essentially, your limbs are dying off, aren't they?
They are. You end up with a lot of blood clots in your extremities, and that's quite classic. They call it the socks and gloves, and that's what I had, socks and gloves.
What does that mean?
Well, your socks are your feet suffer because they're extremities, and gloves being your hands. You end up with big clots going into your hands and your feet, and also it affected the front of my face. You can see I've got a bit of scarring.
And the ears?
A bit of ears, yeah. I had necrosis because of a loss of blood supply in the front of my mouth, and it's caused some damage to teeth and a bit of scarring that they had to take off some dead skin, and that'll be some plastic surgery into the future.
Yeah. Coming up.
The price I'm going to pay for living is quite serious disability, but we'll get over it. We're going to have prosthetics that work. We're going for some very fancy multi-articulating hands, and in time, hopefully, we might be a little bit taller even, because I've got an extra inch on my legs thus far. So that's perhaps the bonus of it.
The arms and legs went black.
Yeah, I mean, awful. I mean, I've got some video.
On your phone?
I've got it on here actually. I've got it up because.
Yeah.
It's 30th of November, and I'm still in St Thomas's Hospital, just the other side of Westminster Bridge, and not really been much to report, if I'm honest, since this condition of the most appalling sepsis started on the 28th of September, so over 2 months ago. I want to say a very big thanks to the NHS, starting at Medway Hospital, and the reality is I probably shouldn't have survived this far.
So it went completely black, arms and legs?
Completely black. They looked like Pharaoh's arms. They'd just been sort of dug up out of the desert. They were sort of desiccating and dry. The blood supply loss to extremities has caused this most strange, almost leather-like plastic material to emerge, and it's caused the complete death of my hands and also my feet. Like frostbite effect, but your whole arm. Very weird.
So then you're in a coma.
Yeah.
Your arms and legs are black.
Yeah.
Do you know how long you're in a coma for? Were you out for a bit?
I think they tried to take. I don't really know the full details. When you speak to Kochi about this, she'll tell you sort of the whens. But I think I was in a full coma for about a week or so, and then sort of in and out of a bit of sedation. Gosh. And I was transported to St Thomas's Hospital on the 16th of October when I was well enough to be moved, because I just physically wasn't well enough.
So they stabilised you with drugs?
Yeah. Platelet level was a collapse, so it means you really can't be moved, because if you do have a bleed, you're going to bleed out.
No. But that's a 3-week gap.
Pretty much, yeah, getting on for 3 weeks.
When you weren't aware?
Weren't aware at all, not a clue. And even I think the first few days of St Thomas's, don't really remember them very clearly.
So you woke up in St Thomas's. You thought, why am I here?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And you went to look at your arms and thought,
well, you
why are
could
they
see
black?
these black arms, and obviously wife was explaining what had happened, and
How did you
I
feel?
don't know what I was thinking actually. I think probably still on the joys of fentanyl and all the rest of it by then. So I'm in and out of lucidity. But I could see these things were probably lost. It became obvious.
You couldn't move your fingers?
Oh no, they were completely fixed into a clenched fist. Yeah. And toes, I could move a couple of toes on my left leg, but there was sort of a little sign of life in them. Maybe they could have saved a bit of a foot, but my surgeon said, you are better off having them off, because you can have prosthetics and you'll walk far better than having a partial foot.
Was there any moment at which the surgeons thought, I hope you remind me saying this, maybe Kochi knows more, that is it worth Craig carrying on? It's going to be a difficult life after this. Was there a choice to be made?
I don't think that ever happened to St Thomas's, but I think those conversations certainly happened at Medway in the early stages.
What happened?
Whether
you know?
he ought to be on do not resuscitate. Is it worth it?
So the choice was
so serious.
You could have been left to die, and there's a choice made by Cotty on your behalf not to die.
Yeah. And because you don't see many people like me, you don't often see quad amputees, and I think 20, 30 years ago you wouldn't have seen any, because people just died. I think the quality of the drugs has moved on, the understanding of sepsis has moved on that bit more over the years, and that's the reason I'm alive. And trouble is, the price I'm going to pay for living is quite serious disability, but we'll get over it.
So, of course, this is the last time that these old things that have served me well for 57 years will be attached to me.
I'm a bit of a positive person. I also believe positive thoughts have to bring positive things in your life. But it just got to a point when the amputation was the only way forward. That day was difficult. That morning and the night before was very difficult because it became real.
So it will be a new life, a different life, and we'll be adapting to it. So the Grim Reaper let me survive, but he's taken his payment in 4 of my limbs. But that's the way it is. Plenty worse things happening.
I went in the morning with the first train to get to Craig as soon as possible. And I was surprised to see that I woke Craig up in his room. He slept very well. I couldn't, because I knew just that is it, no way back. And yes, he was very matter of fact. He accepted that they black, they not any use anymore. And that's it. So he had a very long operation. And he did come back without those black arms and legs. And by then I was fine. I just knew that is it. That's the new future, new life begins.
4 or 5 hour operation.
Yeah.
And so I woke up and thought, I couldn't have done it. They must have just sort of looked at it and decided not to or something. But then I realised, oh yes, they have done it.
After the break,
there will be a rebalance, because I physically won't be able to be chasing all of those rainbows all the time. I'm not going to be as able. I'll be able enough, because being an MP at the end of the day, I hope is about what you got up here rather than knock on every door, much as I'd like to. But life will have to change. And if it means more time with family, that has got to be a change for the absolute good, and I'm looking forward to that.
and how do you introduce Olivia to the scale of what had happened to Daddy?
When Craig fell ill, the ambulance crew was here, Olivia was still in bed, so they arrived, the ambulance arrived, and then she opened her door and she thought, oh, who are these people? So she was all around them asking what happened and what they do to her daddy. And she was absolutely fine about Craig taken to the hospital by ambulance. She understood, at the time she was just over 4 years old, she understood that they would be making Daddy better and feel better. The difficulty came when Daddy didn't come home that evening. And I had to tell her that that night Daddy needed to stay in hospital. And obviously knowing the nature of Craig's illness, I couldn't 100% tell her that Daddy would come home. I didn't want her to keep false hopes, so I just had to go around the subject that Daddy is there to feel better and to get better. And then around the 5th day, when she just, by then she started to cry. I remember getting her ready for bath and she just sat on the floor and she told me, that, do you think that he thinks of me? And that was it. That's when she started to cry. But obviously, when Daddy felt better, and I could see that the blood test results were started to get better, and he was making more and more sort of connections with us as we arrived to the room, even still being in coma. I could tell to Olivia that Craig was feeling better.
And then the operation happened on the 1st of December, and you have to introduce Olivia to her daddy.
Yes.
How do you do that? After the operation?
We talked about Daddy's black arm and legs a lot once Olivia was seeing them, and she also had good understanding of just being ill. She understood that if we left them there, they would make Daddy feel even worse. So she accepted that fairly quickly. She even said she didn't like Daddy's black arms. She does miss Craig's arms and legs before the illness, but she really didn't like those black legs or arms.
And when your daughter saw you, your daughter's Olivia's 3 or she's 4?
4.
She's 4 now, isn't she? When she saw you, what did she say?
She was remarkable. I think children always are. But the first time she was brought up to see me, we covered up all these black hands because they were quite a startling thing to see in bandages, so they weren't visible. But a bit of it sort of popped out, and a discussion about it. But children are unbelievably resilient. But she's not very keen on the black bit of this leg because I think it reminds her of what the the leg looked like.
You can paint those,
I suppose you can, or you can get some aluminium ones, but yeah. But she's associating this blackness with
what happened,
how ill Dad was.
Yeah, of course. But children look at faces, don't they? And you're the dad.
Yeah.
And
but she's been a great little nurse. She's sort of really.
What does she do for you?
I mean, I've got a few little wounds that need dressing, and the other day I said, Olivia, what does this need? Silver nitrate. And it was exactly what it did need. Yes.
And how did you feel when you saw him for the first time after the operation?
I was relieved. I was relieved that he is back from surgery. And I got over the fact that Craig would be looking slightly differently. I think that's very important when two people meet, I guess, that have that initial sort of fancy each other. But then over the years, relationship grows to a different level.
Deeper level,
absolutely. And whether it's with arms or legs, it's the same person. My absolute everything was Craig never lost his mind. A sense of humor is back, if anything. And so in my eyes, Craig hasn't changed.
So you woke up there with no arms and legs, then suddenly, how has your life changed? I mean, you're a lot lighter,
Yes. Well, and the illness, I'd lost weight as well through just being very, very unwell. Feeling better all the time, doing a bit of physiotherapy. They're trying to sort of get you up best you can. I've got this very scarred skin, which is quite delicate. So a very long process of starting from there and getting to where I am now. We're going to have prosthetics at work. We're going for some very fancy multi-articulating hands. And, in time, hopefully, we might be a little bit taller even, because I've got an extra inch on my legs thus far, so that's perhaps the bonus of it. And the other little bonus that might come out of this is obviously not smoking anymore. So it might have saved my life.
Craig has been a great patient. Like all of the patients that we have here, Craig has pushed all of us to our limits, which has been really positive. We are really excited to see what Craig does next.
You got a fan club?
I have.
Well done.
He has moved through the rehab process pretty quickly, and I think part of being an amputee rehab unit that's inpatients has allowed him to do that. So I think Craig's total stay with us will be about 9 weeks. So to reach the outcomes he has at the moment has surpassed lots of initial expectations when we first met Craig.
You've lived a lot of life in the past 8 months, far more than most people will ever live in their entire life. What have been the lowest moments you've had to face?
I suppose when your body just isn't doing something you want it to do and you think you can do it. I mean, when I had skin grafts, and they're very painful. Funny enough, skin grafts have been more painful than anything else, more painful than the amputation. And just trying to transfer off the bed onto a wheelchair, and you're sort of bouncing across, and it is so painful. And you are in tears of frustration that this is just, why is it so bad? Why isn't this getting better? But no, I've been pretty much cheerful throughout. I just think I'm probably coming to the end of my tether of being under the care of an institution of the NHS for so long. I'm ready to go home, I really am. So yeah, I've been struggling the last 3 weeks because we just want to get on. You want to get on, want to get out of here, want to get back to work, want to get these arms at work and you can have a bit more of a normal life, want to be walking all over the place. But the range are, they're limited at the moment. I'm getting on pretty well. But there are times when some of the sepsis skin has broken down and you have to come off them for a week, and that's rather frustration because the brain wants to get on, but the flesh is weak, as it were.
We have started with sockets to help him get used to wearing sockets. They're quite heavy. We also need his skin to be able to withstand wearing them, to start to understand and be able to tolerate sweating and things in sockets. So he's got his first sockets, and we've also started putting devices on the end to help him eat and also to help push up, open and close doors, to be able to stabilise himself. So he's got the first start of prosthetics.
Not sure what they're good for. I say they're good for breaking windows or pub fights.
Pushing up, standing.
To me, as we talk, you're the same Craig Mackinlay who I would see regularly for cups of tea in Portcullis House in Parliament.
Yeah.
How have you changed?
Oh, I'm sure I have. It might have given me a bit more patience, because you've got to be patient. And I was very impatient before. I suppose I did have a bit of a high temper at times. Perhaps that has settled down. Perhaps that is a benefit. Maybe I will be a nicer person. I know it's made me have more time with family, which has been a real bonus, because I must say that is one of the downsides of being an MP. Time with family is very limited. Late nights, on the go all the time, chasing the next issue that's got to be pursued, being in the constituency. All of that stuff does take a lot of hours out of the time that you'd really like to be with family, especially when little one's young. You don't get those years back.
And you'll spend more time with your family?
Yes, well, I must say I've spent more time with Olivia these last few months than I've probably had for the rest of her life. Sweetie pea, aren't you? There will be a rebalance, because I physically won't be able to be chasing all of those rainbows all the time. I'm not going to be as able. I'll be able enough, because being an MP at the end of the day, I hope, is about what you got up here rather than knocking on every door, much as I'd like to. But yeah, life will have to change. And if it means more time with family, that has got to be a change for the absolute good, and I'm looking forward to that.
The other day we were cooking in the kitchen. Craig always was the cook. And I was cooking the dinner, obviously. At the moment I'm doing it all. Olivia was helping out, and I had to nip out from the kitchen. By the time I went back, that's him stirring the dish. So it's just day to day, he's getting better. My days are long. I start earlier just to get everything ready.
So you get him up, you help to get him up?
Yes.
Help him dress, you dress him?
Yes. We've got the showering is really the only thing where I need to help. But he's able to do shaving, he's able to do...
He shaves?
Yeah, he shaves.
And how does he get up in the morning? How does he shave and do his teeth?
Yes, shaving and teeth brushing are the ones he can actually do. So shaving is, he holds between his arms
With the
normal
razor? The
normal
razor?
razor. We tried the electric razor, but it's a bit heavy to hold and maneuver. So there's a tiny little patch on one side that he's not quite getting to. So I tend to help with that. But cleaning his teeth, he's doing on his own. Is showering really is the only thing that I need to help him with.
Hard, yeah.
Big sadness to me is holding little one's hand, going to school. Can't do that anymore. We can sort of hold hands, but I can't feel that she's holding. That's a little specialness that's never coming back. You know, that touch of hands is gone.
Coming up,
I'm hoping people might give me the benefit of the doubt and say, that man's been a fighter for himself. He's damn well going to fight for me. I'm going to give him my support.
the Bionic MP.
Bionic MP is what I want to be. When children come up to Parliament and go to the gallery or go to the the school section that Parliament does very well, I want children to be tugging on their mother's coats and saying, I want to see the Bionic MP today. That's what I want to be.
Does your body imagine you got two legs? Do you have what's called phantom pain for amputees?
I've been very lucky on the phantom pain. I don't really get it. I say the only pain or feeling of the entirety of limbs is if you're watching a film and there's sort of a bit of a shock horror moment, like someone falling off a building or something. You get that feeling from head to toe, literally to toe, and you haven't got any toes.
Yeah.
But I can count on my fingers, and you sort of imagine the fingers are there. I'm still. You count 8, you go like 5, 6, 7, 8, and you can sort of in your head imagine that 8 is still there. Yeah.
And that'll be when you actually got hands on there. That'll be quite helpful because you'll start to think they're there anyway.
You would, yes, indeed, yeah. But I can sort of imagine that they are there, and get the number of addition right, even though you're not holding up the 8 to say this is 8.
So people watching this will think you're amazing. You're so upbeat about it. You're so positive about the future. Do you think you have that? Are you surprising yourself about your own resilience? Because I think in life you only ever know that you can deal with something when you're given that challenge.
I think the resilience gets easier as time goes on because you adjust to this being the new normal. So I'm hoping that's the case. That's not to say don't have some dark moments where you think, how on earth did this happen? How on earth did this happen to me? Or anyone really, because it's an unnecessary event. I mean, sepsis is a result of your immune system going into overdrive against a bacteria that you've probably faced before in life. Why didn't it happen before and happen in the future? Well, why did it happen now? So you ask yourself those questions, and you have those frustrations that you haven't got hands at work. I'm really not bothered about the legs, really not bothered about them at all. It's the dexterity of fingers that you really miss. But yes, I think as time goes on, you just get used to a new norm. That is the human condition, I think. You get used to whatever you've got. So I'm hoping over time, it'll be, don't worry about me, I'm fine. Yeah.
And you'll emerge as a campaigner, will you, on sepsis, its causes?
Absolutely, I will.
Raising awareness.
This is the key thing, because a lot of sepsis can be avoided. I don't think mine could, because its onset was so quick. But I think for many people, there are a few days of build-up. And if we can get people to recognise that early, and for the health service to go, yep, be very much on sepsis at an early stage, not only will it save the system a lot of money, because once you start dealing with someone like me that's got limb loss requirements and all the rest of it, and rehab and all of that, that's very expensive. So on a cost basis, me, chartered accountant, right of centre, fiscally conservative, that's important. But for people's lives, let's get them early and try and prevent some sepsis getting out of control and getting to a state like this. And also to campaign for people who are suffering like this, for any reason they've got limb loss, that the system will actually come to their aid. Dare I say, in a slightly better way than I've seen so far.
Right.
Yeah, okay, quite easily.
And Jodie, just about the symptoms of sepsis, I mean, Craig had basically none until he got the disease.
Yeah, it can be a very quick progress. What I would say is people to look out for feeling really unwell. Feeling like there is something really wrong is a big indication. Feeling like your vision may be blurred or not quite right. Your skin changing colour, so being mottled or looking very white, and generally feeling more unwell than you've kind of ever felt. Any changes to your skin is a big one. And the other thing is making sure, just having a think, have you passed urine in the last 24 hours? Because that can be one of the big indications as well.
If you haven't, you mean?
If you haven't, yeah.
After telling us his remarkable and deeply moving story, there's one more question swirling around my head. What's next for Craig Mackinlay? And all this time you've carried on being an MP,
yes.
So I think how have you been voting, for example?
Yeah, well, we're allowed to have proxy voting, unlike days of old. I think it was after the COVID period, then it was introduced for those pregnant MPs. We're now allowed to have proxy voting, which is a new thing. In years gone by, it had been sort of carried through the voting lobby. But I suppose I'm quite a traditionalist, but I think it actually does make some sense if people are very, very unwell.
Yes.
And so my proxy is sitting with John Redwood all this time, really on the basis of, in all my time in Parliament,
you agree entirely with
John Redwood and myself have always been in the same lobby on every occasion. So I thought, well, I don't need to tell him every time what to do. I think instinctively, my political outlook is the same as his, so I can have some safety that he'll be voting the right way.
Yes.
But I didn't want the world to know too much early on. But time has come when we've got to start talking about it. This is the new me. But I've kept service going. My office in Broadstairs, the constituency office, I've got staff that have been with me from the start in 2015. And they've been keeping the balls rolling, and I think most people, except they haven't seen me in Parliament or seen me on dear old GB News or other channels of whatever choice there are, which I was quite regularly on. Apart from that, I think it's been fairly business as normal.
And you're a member of the European Research Group of Tory MPs, mentioned earlier. That's a Eurosceptic, hardcore Eurosceptic group, and they've had meetings at your bedside.
They have. We did have a meeting here, indeed. Yeah, which was nice actually. Yeah. Included all the names that you know and love.
Yes.
Yeah, we had a meeting.
Mark Francois.
Yeah, Mark Francois and Ian Duncan Smith and the usual crowd.
Yeah.
And also organised a bit of a backbench rebellion as well on one of the net zero measures.
Oh, what was that one?
That was about this increasing number of electric vehicles that must be sold over the years to come. Quotas, which again, I just cannot understand. If these things are so great, they'll sell themselves. But I organised a rebellion on that phone from the bedside, and it was one of the biggest rebellions we've seen thus far.
Well, you're keeping going. I mean, when you meet colleagues, are they shocked? Because you've got to explain what happened. Often people don't really know, they're not ready for it. Then you see a friend of theirs with no arms, no legs. It's quite a shock, isn't it?
It has been for some. Yeah.
Have any broken down in tears?
Yeah. I won't mention who they are, but yeah, they have.
I bet they have, yeah.
Yeah. They've been quite upset. More upset than I've been.
You haven't cried?
Well, people have, but yeah.
Yeah. But it's, once they start talking to you, the old Craig is in there.
Well, a lot of them have said, we need you back. We need that voice of reason. We need you to keep us going.
We have a life to live. We've got to get on with life, and it's been put on pause for just over 7 months. And yes, we've got great adventures, great things to get on with. Obviously, Craig's desperate to get back to Parliament. He's got loads of work around that. So yes, just to get back to a bit of new norm, I guess.
And the target for this year is what?
Well, get back into the saddle, get back into Parliament, get back doing the things I really enjoy, get back speaking out for the population of South Thanet, and get ready for that election and try and influence the manifesto as best I can.
So fight and win the election?
Of course. And try and get some decent manifesto points in with the pressure I want to bear, yes.
You're a changed person. I mean, you're not the same person who can walk up and down streets and bang on doors.
That's different, of course.
All that will change.
It is, but I mean, realistically, even if you're an MP that's fitting well, you can never bang on every single door. If you started that on week 1 of a 5-year term, you'd struggle to do every door.
Yeah.
But I've been there for 9 years now, been the MP for 9 years. So hopefully a bit of incumbency, bit of discussion about what I've been through. I'm hoping people might give me the benefit of the doubt and say, that man's been a fighter for himself. He's damn well going to fight for me. I'm going to give him my support.
The Bionic MP.
Bionic MP is what I want to be. When children come up to Parliament and go to the gallery or go to the school section that Parliament does very well, I want children to be tugging on their mother's coats and saying, I want to see the Bionic MP today. That's what I want to be.
Craig versus the world.
It is. Yeah, look out world.